With .NET 10, file-based execution in C# allows us to treat C# like a scripting language. But there's a lot more to it than just executing C# in a simpler way. I'm going to show you how to execute a C# file, how to use packages, how to compile it, how to upgrade a file into a full project, and more in this video. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Tim Corey, and my goal is to make learning software development easier. If you want more free training content, make sure to subscribe to this channel. And if you want even deeper, more structured training, check out imtimcorey.com. We even have a free course over there as well. All right, let's jump right in. I'm actually using VS Code, even though Visual Studio 2026 is great and it just came out. We're not going to do that though, because we're going to use a very, very simple way of working with C#. You see, in .NET 10, we can now use files as the complete application. So one file, the complete application. Let's see how this works. So we're going to create a file. Let's call this file demo.cs. Okay, one C# file. Now we'll keep it really simple, and we're going to do console.writeLine hello world. Really simple. There we go. Okay, now that's just one file. We do not have a CS proj file. We do not have a solution file. We just have the one CS file. Think of this like a Python file or a JavaScript file or other files that you can just execute as they are. And in fact, if we go to our command prompt here and say .NET run file demo.cs. And if we do that, we're going to see hello world. So it's executed this file just on its own. So that right there allows you to very quickly and simply create a small application that does some task, more than a scripting task area, where you can, work with files, you can work with pretty much anything you want, but in a quicker way than a full project. And you can just execute it saying .NET run and the file name. That's it. So super simple and easy to use. But let's take this to the next level. Let's ask about maybe the command line arguments. So you can run an application with command line arguments, and they come through the args array. So let's change this hello world. We're going to put this a string interpolation. Instead of world, we're going to say args 0. So this would be the first command line argument from executing this. Now let's clear our screen here and let's execute this again. But this time I'll say Tim. Now it's going to say hello Tim. It took that command line argument and put it in our application, which you can do the console application too, but this is quicker. So now we're actually reading from the command line arguments because this is a full C# application. Now notice I'm using console.writeLine, not system.console.writeLine, because of the implicit usings in C#, system being one of those implicit usings. Now, if you have been following along in the past few iterations of .NET, really from .NET 8 and beyond, Microsoft has been slowly but surely trimming down the excess verbiage around running C#, right? So it started off with taking the program.cs and the, having static void main and the namespace and all the rest, taking all that out and getting file scope namespaces or file namespaces like program.cs and then the file scoped namespace. So we don't have to have the different namespaces specified and all this other stuff I took out of our applications and got to the point where program.cs is just our code. Well, this is an extension of that. This is basically program.cs, but in different file names. Now, the one thing we're not going to be doing is having two different files here interacting with each other. But you might be saying, well, that's kind of limited, right? You can't interact with other things. That's not quite true. So let's change this a bit. Let's change this to be console.write, what is your name? And then we'll, instead of doing the command line args, we're going to ask for here and say string name equals console.readline. And then we'll put that name in this spot instead of args. So there we go. There's something, that if we just ran this like so, we're going to get a possible null value. That's okay. It's a warning. We can say, my name is Timothy. Hello, Timothy. So that works. We could worry about, see, this is a nullable string. We could put this as a nullable string here and then say, I think name should be fine. Let's see if it actually yells at me here. Yeah. Tim. Hello, Tim. Cool. So that works. We just needed to make sure we got rid of that warning. Okay. So a little, it's more self-contained. We don't have to have the command line arguments, but what if you want to interact with other things? That's what I'm setting up here. So I'm going to maybe turn this name into a different color. Let's say red. Okay. To do that, I want to use Spectre console. So instead of console.writeLine, I'm going to use Spectre console's ANSI console.markup line. How would I do that? That's a nuget package. Not a problem. What we can do is we can say at the top here, # or #, package spectre.console at 0.54.0. That's the name of the package, and then that's the version number. Okay? So yes, it's yelling at me now. It's going to go away in just a minute. That will be not a problem. So now we're doing this, we can have a using directive or using statement. So using Spectre dot, I think it's just using Spectre.console. Okay, let's rebuild this. So let's actually just run it. There you go. And that should clear the error up, but we can close it out and reopen it. Cool. Okay, so now instead of console.writeLine, we're going to say ANSI console.markupLine. And what we'll do is we're going to do the same thing we did here. Let's just copy and paste it like so. We can get rid of this line right here. And let's mark this up. So we're going to say red is fine. Let's do red. Like so. So now we have the name being marked up as red. So let's clear the screen here, and we're going to run this again. What's my name? Tim. There you go. Hello, Tim, but Tim is in red. So now we've brought in a nuget package, utilize that nuget package in our code. So if we want to then take this to the next level, maybe what we want to do is we want to actually create an exe out of this. Now, we can just take this file and run it on any machine. So Mac, Windows, Linux, we can run on any of those because of the fact this is cross-platform. So we could take this file and execute it just by saying .NET run filedemo.cs. Done. But if you want to create an executable, which could be both a DLL or an exe, then what we're going to do is say .NET publish, and we're going to publish filedemo.cs. It's going to publish that. When it's done, right now it's publishing for the Win-x64 platform or 64-bit platform. We have this artifacts folder. In the artifacts folder, we have our filedemo.exe and our PDB file. So that is our executable for Windows. Now, what if we said, well, that's great. We got a really cool demo going on here, but now that we've proven this works, I want to take this next level and actually build a project around this. But this isn't a project. So how would I add a second file, or how would I do other things? Well, you probably want to promote it to a full project as opposed to this file-based execution. So to do that, really simple, we say .NET project convert filedemo.cs. Now, it's going to ask you, what's the output directory? And this probably keeps the same name, so file demo. So just hitting enter will accept the defaults. When we do that, we get this new folder. And in this folder, we now have a CS project file, or a CS file. So we have the using directive, we have our code here, And don't write this, it's just, it's recompile. We also have our CS proj file. And notice our CS proj file has a package reference to Spectre console. And it also has user secrets. It has package tool, publishes AOT. It's nullable. It's implicit usings. It's target framework 10. So it created the CS proj based upon what our file was. So we have a package reference. So therefore it put that package reference in the CS proj. And we had our code, and it put that code in the file demo.cs file. So it took care of expanding this file out into a full project, which you can then take and put into a solution you want or run from there. So that's how this file-based kind of scripting of C# works. Now, there are other things you can think about. First of all, by default, these file-based packages or file-based executions are native AOT, which is about as fast as it can get in how it's compiled and then executed. Now, if you don't want that, you can turn that off. So what you would do is you would come to the top here, before or after, just make sure your hashtag colons are first. And you would say that I want to say property and then publish AOT equals false. And that would be turning off AOT. Okay, that's ahead of time compilation. Notice in here, we have publishes AOT is true. So by default, that's what's happening. This would turn it off. So there's a lot you can do in here. You can also, there's the hashbang setup for running on Linux or Mac that could be helpful at times in pointing to the right location of .NET. But that's how you use these file-based CS files to execute some C# code without having to build up a whole project and solution and all the rest, all the overhead of Visual Studio, all the overhead of running it and loading it and all the rest. You just start writing C# code in a file and say, run that thing. So super helpful for kind of the, starting out, demoing things, trying things out, maybe even creating small scripts that you just leave in the CS file. Just have a CS file. It's like, this is my script, and I just execute the CS file instead of having to have a full project for this. But then when you're ready, you can promote that to a project. If you need to, you can bring in packages. There's so many things you can do with this. And no, this is not for every solution, obviously. This is not for every situation. This is only for certain situations, but where you might use it, it's going to be really helpful, and it's very, very, very fast. So I encourage you to check these things out. They're great. I'll be using them for pretty much replacing a lot of what I do console apps for. Because with console apps, I'm creating a solution file and a project file and my program.cs all just to run a little bit of code. Well, now I just pop open any location anywhere and just put some C# code in a file and then run that. So super helpful. I would encourage you to check it out, use it, practice with it, and let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, if you want this source code, such as it is, I'll leave that and download in the description of this video. So check them out. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.